Okay, we'll go ahead and get that. Okay, good. So what we're going to do today, as you can see on the screen, you have Canvas in student mode, and we are going to talk about the quiz right now, the midterm 2, and you can see that it's showing midterm 2 is not available yet, but when I click on that, you can see on the screen that it will be due Tuesday, March 14th at 9 a.m. In other words, just before our class next Tuesday, you'll have to complete the exam, and then we'll start class at 9:30, 9:35, our usual start time. And we'll talk about the results of the exam at that point in time. It's worth 100 points. There are 30 multiple choice questions, 4 and 5 choices each. You have 3 hours to work the exam. That is plenty of time to work through 30 multiple choice questions. I advise you be careful as you go through those questions, meticulously going through each one. You should have plenty of time to work those 30 questions in that 3-hour time period. It becomes available, shortly, in a couple hours or so, today at 12 p.m. And again, it'll remain open. And you have any of that window of time to pick a 3-hour period where you will go ahead and work through those 30 multiple choice questions. Once you open the exam, that 3 hours starts to run on you. You don't have the option of closing it and opening it for an hour and coming back later and doing 2 hours. It doesn't work that way. Once you click on it, the time will run on you. Okay, just like we did for midterm 1. Okay, so make sure that you're aware of those times, etc. Again, I don't tend to be very sympathetic to I forgot to take the exam or something. Take that exam. You see the times, you see the dates. You know what you need to do. Question on that? Okay, good. And going back, a couple of things I'll point out. We have these comprehensive midterms. Okay, as you can see, there's a lecture up there now for the practice midterm we did last time, and we also had done the chapter 7 practice midterm. So that's where you'll find that lecture. The actual file that we went through is actually down under chapter 7. We went through the lecture, but then we hadn't touched that in practice midterm at the end of that lecture. I just went ahead and posted that lecture for that chapter 7 practice midterm under here, and then we went through the practice midterm 2. I think we had 2 of them. We went through one of them together. So that information is there. You have those practice midterm questions, and what I want to do today is potentially fairly quick class depending on the questions that we have. I'm going to go through practice midterm, extra practice midterm 2 questions, this file right here, which contain mainly questions from chapter 7, since we haven't had as much practice with that as we did for those 2 other practice midterms where there were quite a few questions related to chapter 6. Okay, the midterm is just going to cover chapter 6 and 7. We'll get to some of those other chapters as we close out the class. Okay, now I'm going to say this now. I'm kind of preaching to the choir because you're here for this class, and there's probably in the neighborhood of 30 students enrolled in this class, and we're hovering around 15 students showing up to class. So nearly, maybe more than half the class have decided that it's okay not to come to the lectures. Remember that I offered the opportunity that if you did better on midterm 2 than you did on midterm 1, that I would increase your grade on midterm 1 to meet the midterm 2 grade, to match that grade. And I'm still going to do that. However, remember that the rule was that you had to do as well or better on the final in order to keep that better midterm 2 grade. I'm adding a requirement to that, which is as we close out the class, and we just have a few meetings left, in order to keep that higher grade on midterm 1 by doing better on midterm 2, a person will have to maintain their attendance going to the end of the class. I'm going to add that as a requirement. I'm not too happy with the fact that people just decided to sort of check out of the class. That doesn't work for me. So I'm going to be adding that requirement, but we'll talk more about that. The most important thing is to be ready for midterm 2, right? Which opens today at noon and will stay open until Tuesday next week before our class on Tuesday, 9 a.m. It'll close on Tuesday, the 14th. You can pick any 3-hour window within that time, any 3-hour time period within that window of time to work that exam. Question. Okay, good. Then if there are no questions, what I'm going to do is open that extra practice, midterm 2 extra practice. Okay, that's the file that I just showed you. It's mainly focusing on chapter 7 questions. Okay, but let's just go ahead and take a look. And the main focus of chapter 7, as you recall, were the inventory methods, mainly focusing on weighted average, FIFO, LIFO. Guys, you're going to see questions like that on your exam, maybe 10 questions like that on your 30-question multiple choice question exam. So you want to be ready for this stuff. You can't do well in the exam without doing well on this stuff. Okay, so let's just go ahead and let's take a look. Okay, let's just make sure we're understanding what the question is asking us. And as we go through, if you have questions, just jump in. Okay. And it tells us that a company had inventory on November 1st of 5 units costing $20 each. Okay, good. Then we come over and they say on November 2nd, they purchased 10 units at $22 each. And then notice we're going along here through the month of November in this example. On November 6th, they purchased 6 units at $25 each. Then they tell us that on November 8th, 8 units were sold for $55 each using LIFO, last in, first out. That means that the last things that we purchase will be the first things that we'll sell. Now, just taking a look right here, the last purchase was what? November 6th, they purchased 6 units at $25 each. So what should be the value of the ending inventory after they have sold what? After they have sold 8 units. Now, the way book shows to do it, and I think this probably is a smart way to do it, is to sit there and say, well, look, you had 5 units in the beginning inventory, then you purchased what? Then you purchased 10, then you purchased 6 units. Okay, you've got what? A total of 21 units available, but they tell us that they sold 8. So that means that we need to account for an ending inventory 13 units. Okay. Now, when you say, well, it's 13 units, well, what will those 13 units be comprised of? And under last in, first out, that tells us that what? We haven't sold any of these units left yet, right? We hadn't sold any of those. So we got 5 at 20. And then since we've sold what? Since we sold 8, then the remaining 13 units, or the remaining 8 to bring us up to 13, would be these ones that we purchased for $22 each. Those are the ones that are sitting there that we purchased on November 2nd. The ones that we had purchased on November 8th, essentially we would have done what? We would have, not on November 8th, but the ones that we purchased on November 6th, we sold all of those, right? Question. Okay. Okay, good. By the way, the questions will focus cost of goods sold and ending inventory. That's going to be the focus. Okay. Now you come over and Marquis uses the weighted average method and has the following information. And they had some units that they purchased. And then they want to know what is the cost of goods sold using weighted average. Now, remember, with weighted average, we do what? We take the units, okay, times the cost of those units. That's why they call it weighted, because it's being weighted by the number of units at those costs, right? 12 and 14. That gives us this total, and then we divide that by the total units, which is what? Which is these 25 units that were available. Okay, so that gives us a weighted average cost per unit of $13.20. We had what? We had sold 12, so we value that sale, the $13.20. And the correct answer here is $158.40. Now, the question didn't ask this, but if it were to ask, well, what's the value of the ending inventory? Okay, this has cost of goods sold. If they asked the value of the ending inventory, well, we would have sold what, 25, or we would have bought 25, I should say. We sold 12, so we have what, 13 left, and we would take that 13 left and we would multiply that by that weighted average cost of $13.20. And that would have given us the answer for ending inventory if the question had asked that. May not be a bad idea, guys, even though I'm asking cost of goods sold in the sample question. See if you could figure out for ending inventory. There's a chance that you might see the same exact question in the midterm that's going to open at 12 o'clock today. You might see this same question, but instead of asking cost of goods sold, I'll be asking ending inventory. Okay. Okay, good. Stop me if there's a question, guys. Okay. Now we come over and they tell us that McCarthy Company has 8 units of cost at cost of 200 on October 1st. So they start the month with the 8 units. They cost $200 each. On October 1st, they purchased 20 units at $205. 11 units were sold on October 4th using the FIFO, and we only focus on perpetual in here, inventory method. What is the value of the inventory after the October 4th sale? Again, they take the same approach. Look, you had 8 units, then you did what? You bought 20 more, you sold 11, you have 17 left. And under FIFO, we're sitting there and saying, well, those 17 units are all going to be valued at the value of that last purchase. We purchased those 20 units at $205 on October 2nd, and those will constitute the units that are left, the 17 units that are left. 17 times 205 gives us this 3485. Question. Okay, good. Coming over, let's take a look at the next one. And we've got this Starlight Company has inventories of 8 at $200 each. On October 1st, they purchased 20 units at $205. 11 units were sold. If that's sounding familiar to you, and you may very well see this on the exam, I'll give you the same fact pattern with the change going instead of FIFO. Maybe I'm asking you LIFO, or maybe instead of LIFO, I'm asking you weighted average, but it'll have the same fact pattern. So now what's happening? If it's last in, first out, we know from the previous fact pattern that there were what? That there were these 11 units left, right? So if you take those 11 units, but under last in, first out now, you're saying that what? The units that I sold were those last ones that I had purchased. So since I sold what? Since I sold 11 units, that means that all of those units, and they're asking me cost of goods sold here, okay? That means that all of those units were what? All of those units would have been sold at that 205 because I had purchased 20 of those. And I'm sitting there, and I would have sold those all 11 units. I would have sold those at that last cost I had available in the system, which is this 205. Question. So I guess that question, you could see it like that, where one, they're asking the value of the ending inventory. That's the ending inventory. In this other question, we switched up the method on you. Okay, this LIFO method, we switched that up. And you really need to look at the previous question. They tell you right there 11 units were sold. And they tell us that we sold those 11 and we want to calculate the cost of goods sold. So those would have all gone out at the cost of those units we most recently purchased in this example, October 2nd. Okay. All right. Company reports the following using the FIFO perpetual inventory. What is the inventory at August 15th after the sale? Okay, so we have what? We have these units, first in, first out. We're selling what? We're selling 30 units, and they want to know what is the inventory after the sale. Well, if we sold 30 units, what happens? We had 45 units available in total, just adding those numbers up. Okay, minus what we sold, they tell us 30 units. So that means there's what? There is 15 units that are left, and we would consider all of those to be at the $14 because under first in, first out, we sold all of those to make 25, and we would have sold what? We would have sold 5 of those, right? Leaving us at 15 units. Okay. Okay, good. Stop me if there's a question, guys. I'm assuming silence equals understanding. Don't worry about the numbering on these. I cut some out. I put them up there initially, then I realized that's not how I wanted to ask some of these questions. So that's why the numbering is a little off. Okay, good. Now you have the number of units here. They give us the cost per unit. They give us the market per unit. And remember that we are to use the lower of cost or market, a very basic sense here. And so we go through, and let's just sort of highlight these as we go. Here, what? The cost is lower. Here, the market is lower. And here, the market is lower. So we're going to pick up those numbers in the green there. And then we're going to multiply them by the quantities that are shown here. Very, very straightforward stuff, guys. So it'll be the 150 times the $2, the 250, okay, the lower market there, times the 370 units. Now where'd that go? Right here, okay. And then those 260 marmalade, whatever, are at 305. Add those together, that gives us what? The correct answer here, which is C. Okay. Okay, good. Number 9, company had beginning inventory of 15 at cost of 12 each on October 1st. On October 5th, it purchased 10 units at 13 per unit. On October 12th, it purchases 20 units at 14 per unit. On October 15th, it sells 30 units using, okay, this question, sorry guys, my bad, I missed something there. Never mind, I don't want to ask periodic in here. Periodic inventory method is something that's really kind of old hat, and I don't want to ask that. So just ignore this question. Okay, I missed that they said periodic there. Never mind this question. I don't want to do periodic. Okay. Okay, good. Let's come over and let's look at number 10. The company had beginning inventory of 10 units at a cost of $20 each. On March 1st, on March 2nd, it purchased 10 units at 22. On March 6th, purchased 6 units at 25. On March 8th, it sold 22 units at $54 each. What is the cost of the units sold? So you look at this, and they took a little bit of a different approach now to get the cost here, but it's first in, first out. I know that I sold what? I sold 22 units. So I'm going to account for those by saying, hey, I sold all of those ones that were on hand on March 1st. That's where that 10 is coming from. I then purchased 10, but I need 22 units. So that means that I would have sold all of those. I'm crossing that out because they're being sold. But those came in at 22 units. I mean at $22. I still need 2 units to constitute the remaining of the 22 units that were sold. And so I'm going to say, well, okay, I sold 2 of these, right? And those were at $25 each. And so I do the math on that, I get the 470. Okay, that's it. And cross that one out. Question. Question about the exam. Are you sure? Okay, guys, that's pretty much all I've got for today. I wanted to go through a few more of these chapter 7 type questions with you. I would say if you mastered the questions that we went through here, if you master the ones that we talked about last time in the practice midterm 2, there was 2 files there. If you are good at those things, okay, these practice midterms, the practice midterm per chapter, and if you've gone through and understood the slides just for 2 chapters, chapter 6, chapter 7, okay, 30 multiple choice questions, 3 hours to work those, there is no reason that you should not be successful. Now, let me issue a warning again, like I've been doing for some time. Do not think that you're going to be able to be successful on this exam by cheating. By that meaning that you're looking at information from some website, Course Hero or Chug or Chegg or whatever they're calling these, these hack websites that list questions off from previous exams that maybe I've given at other institutions or something, and think that that's going to save you. That is not going to happen on this exam. I promise you. You're going to open that exam and you're going to be, what the hell is this? If that's your plan, okay? So study the material that I've given you, do your own work, and you should be in good shape to be very successful on this exam, like many of you were on midterm 1. Question? Okay, guys, exam opens in 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and let you continue to look at this material. In the meantime, keep progressing here with a certain amount of vigor, and you should be in good shape, okay? Okay, guys, there's no questions. I will see you on Tuesday. Remember,
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you,
exam
Professor.
closes Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Don't forget. Okay. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.